Good evening. This is All India Radio. I am Valsa Williams and with me is Manoj Singh Rana with the evening news. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviews situation in Ukraine. Nearly 10,800 stranded Indians brought back by special flight so far under Operation Ganga from Ukraine's neighbouring countries. 16 flights scheduled for next 24 hours, including 4 C-17 aircraft of Indian Air Force. UNHRC votes for formation of Commission of Inquiry to monitor alleged human rights violations by Russian army in Ukraine. All preparations in place for second and final phase of assembly elections in Manipur tomorrow, polling to be held from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Campaigning to end tomorrow for seventh and final phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Indigenous anti-collision system Kavach to avoid rail accidents successfully tested by Indian Railways. At least 56 people killed in bomb blast at a Shiite Mosque of Peshawar city in Pakistan. Legendary Australian cricketers Shane Warne and Marsh pass away. And India were 357 for 6 in their first innings against Sri Lanka at stumps on day 1 of first cricket test at Mohali. As we start the bulletin, we appeal to our listeners to stay safe from COVID-19 by following these 4 simple steps. Get fully vaccinated, wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting to review the Ukraine situation today. The meeting was attended by Union Ministers Dr. S. Jaishankar and Piyush Goyal, along with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla and other senior officials. 2 days back, the Prime Minister had held a similar meeting on the Ukraine crisis. He has been continuously holding high-level meetings on the Ukraine crisis since the beginning of the conflict. Nearly 10,800 Indians have been brought back by special flights from Ukraine's neighbouring countries under Operation Ganga so far. The Civil Aviation Ministry in a statement today said over 9,364 Indians have been evacuated by 43 special civilian flights, while 7 flights of C-17 have evacuated 1,428 passengers so far. C-17 also carried 9.7 tons of relief material. The External Affairs Ministry has said over 20,000 Indians have left Ukraine's border so far. Briefing media, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi today said 18 flights have landed in India in the last 24 hours, carrying around 4,000 Indians on board. He added that a total of 48 flights have landed so far from Ukraine's neighbouring countries. He said 16 flights scheduled for the next 24 hours, including 4 IAF C-17 aircraft. Giving assurance that flights will continue to operate till the evacuation of every Indian from Ukraine, he said with the operation of special flights, a vast majority of Indians who have crossed over Ukraine's borders would have returned to India.
There will be some more left. We will continue to schedule flights, not only to bring those people back who have already crossed over, but also those who will or who are yet to cross over from Ukraine itself right now. So I just wanted to assure people who think the flights are ending, no, flights will continue till we manage to get everybody out who can leave Ukraine.
Talking about the evacuation drive, Mr. Bagchi said the highest attention is on the eastern side of Ukraine, particularly Kharkiv and Pisochin. He said Indian mission in Ukraine has managed to get some buses there. He said around 300 Indians are stranded in Kharkiv, 900 in Pisochin and more than 700 in Sumy.
I'm happy to share that we have managed to get some buses there because this is a place, a small village there. I think we managed to get 5 buses already. Yesterday, I think 2 buses left, taking them to Lviv. Today, 3 buses have left. I think they're trying to reach the Moldovan border. We're looking at whatever ways to get them out into a safe zone. We're looking at more buses as we can. I think a couple of more buses should happen later in the evening, tomorrow. So that process has begun. I have seen messages from many people who are stuck there saying, look, I wanted to assure them that we are aware that they are there. We are monitoring the situation and we are trying our best. See how fast you can get your way safely in an organized manner. I know they're Kharkiv, they're in a safe zone, but we now need to bring them back.
Russia has taken control of a nuclear power station in Ukraine. A fire broke out at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, the largest in Europe, and Ukraine said it was shelled by Russian troops. Authorities said the facility is now safe and radiation levels are normal. World leaders have accused Russia of endangering the safety of an entire continent, while Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of nuclear terror. President Zelensky said Russia wanted a repeat of Chernobyl, the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster in 1986. US President Joe Biden urged Moscow to stop its military activities around the site, while Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the horrific attacks from Russia must cease immediately. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the reckless attack could directly threaten the safety of all of Europe. He said he would seek an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council today over the attack. All three leaders spoke to Ukraine's president over the phone. Russia's defense ministry blamed the attack on Ukrainian saboteurs, calling it a monstrous provocation without providing evidence. A video feed from the nuclear plant showed blasts lighting up the night sky and sending up plumes of smoke. According to Ukraine's nuclear inspectorate, buildings around one of the plant's 6 power units have been damaged without affecting its safety. The United Nations top human rights body has voted overwhelmingly to appoint a 3-person panel of experts to monitor alleged human rights violation by the Russian army in Ukraine. The Human Rights Council voted 32-2 with 13 abstentions to pass a resolution that was presented by many Western countries and others who have spoken out against Moscow's operation. Only Russia and Eritrea opposed the resolution, with China abstaining. The voting today was the culmination of an urgent debate called by Ukraine, during which most council members criticized Russia.
Global stocks today fell while safe haven investments like gold and US dollar hit multi-year high amid continuation of Russian military operation in Ukraine on the 9th day. After reports that Russian forces seized Europe's biggest nuclear power plant in Ukraine, the currencies of many developing countries depreciated amid higher demand for the US dollar. Experts said cutting off many Russian banks from interbank payment system SWIFT can hit the industries which depend on supply of industrial commodities. Many European countries are heavily dependent on Russian energy, particularly gas, through several pipelines. Moreover, supply of various agriculture products and fertilizers has also been affected following the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Indian imports might also face the brunt of it. Experts said if the conflict stretches further, the global supply chain, especially edible oil and food supplies, may be hampered badly. News Services Division of All India Radio talked to senior financial expert Puneet Jain on the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on the global economy as well as on India.
The world economy is in a state of crisis right now because we were barely recovering from pandemic when this geopolitical situation in Russia and Ukraine has increased the stakes of the global economy. The biggest problem that the global economy is facing is crude oil. Prices have gone up, which will feed into inflation. So inflation has become very high. And this is a problem for India also because India's economic growth gets affected because we have to raise interest rates and we have to bring down prices. The good news about India is that we have very strong fundamentals. We have a good position as far as foreign exchange reserves are concerned, which are at record high of $650 billion. So we should be able to face this imported inflation to some extent. But even then, I think Indian economy's growth may be below what we were expecting earlier. We were expecting 10% growth next year, but I think now that growth may be affected to some extent to about 8% growth. So while the global economy is hurting India through high inflation, I think India's strong fundamentals will help us to face this situation in the short term.
The Sensex and the Nifty today plunged around 1.5%. Both stocks declined amid negative global share markets. A report from the Business World.
Sensex lost 769 points to finish at 54,334. Nifty also tumbled by 252 points to settle at 16,245. The rupee weakened by 26 paise against the US dollar. The local unit settled at 76 rupees and 17 paise against the American currency. Gold prices rose 300 rupees. The precious metal was trading at 52,070 rupees per 10 grams. Silver prices also climbed 490 rupees to 68,400 rupees per kilogram. And in In intraday trade, Brent crude oil was trading around $112.60 per barrel. Arjun Chaudhary for AIR News.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India's vision is clear that sustainable growth is possible from sustainable energy sources only. Addressing a webinar on energy for sustainable growth today, Mr. Modi said with the coming years, India's energy demands will increase. Therefore, we must transition to renewable energy.
एनर्जी फॉर सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ ये हमारी पुरातन परंपराओं से भी प्रेरित है और भविष्य की आवश्यकताओं आकांक्षाओं की पूर्ति का मार्ग भी है। भारत का क्लियर विजन है कि सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ सस्टेनेबल एनर्जी सोर्सेज से ही संभव है।
The Prime Minister said he considers the COP26 goals of achieving the net zero target not as a challenge but as an opportunity. He said by 2030, India has set the target of extracting 50% of its energy from non-fossil fuels, and it is an opportunity to shift to more sustainable practices. He said there is a need to focus on building a hydrogen ecosystem.
हमने नेशनल हाइड्रोजन मिशन की भी घोषणा की है। भारत के पास प्रचुर मात्रा में उपलब्ध रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पावर के रूप में एक इनहेरेंट एडवांटेज है। इससे भारत विश्व में ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन का हब बन सकता है। हाइड्रोजन इकोसिस्टम फर्टिलाइजर, रिफाइनरीज और ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर से इंटरकनेक्टेड है। एक ऐसा क्षेत्र है जिसमें प्राइवेट सेक्टर द्वारा इनोवेशंस को बढ़ावा दिया जाना चाहिए ताकि भारत की पूरी क्षमता का उपयोग किया जा सके।
The Prime Minister said the country must develop sustainable and innovative business models to improve efficiency in the electric vehicles or EV ecosystem. You're listening to the evening news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviews situation in Ukraine. Nearly 10,800 stranded Indians brought back by special flight so far under Operation Ganga from Ukraine's neighbouring countries. 16 flights scheduled for next 24 hours, including 4 C-17 aircraft of Indian Air Force. UNHRC votes for formation of Commission of Inquiry to monitor alleged human rights violations by Russian army in Ukraine. All preparations in place for second and final phase of assembly elections in Manipur tomorrow. Polling to be held from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Campaigning to end tomorrow for seventh and final phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Indigenous anti-collision system, Kavach, to avoid rail accidents successfully tested by Indian Railways. At least 56 people killed in bomb blast at a Shiite Mosque of Peshawar city in Pakistan. Legendary Australian cricketers Shane Warne and Rod Marsh pass away. And India were 357 for 6 in their first innings against Sri Lanka at stumps on day one of first cricket test at Mohali. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाने के लिए लीजिए आकाशवाणी का सहयोग और दीजिए उसे बुलंदियों के पंख।
आपका बिजनेस लोकल है या राष्ट्रीय, आकाशवाणी देती है उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का हर विकल्प।
और अब तो आप घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे कर सकते हैं आकाशवाणी के किसी भी केंद्र के लिए विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग। आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न चैनलों पर विज्ञापन देना सुलभ और सस्ता। बुकिंग है तो संपर्क करें 8700014242 पर।
8700014242।
Welcome back to the evening news. All preparations are in place for second and final phase of assembly elections to be held in Manipur tomorrow. The polling will be conducted from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. 22 seats spread over 10 districts will go to polls in this phase. These districts include Thaubal, Kakching, Jiribam, Chandel, Tengnaupal, Kamjong, Ukhrul, Senapati, Tamenglong and None district. There are 92 candidates, including 2 women, contesting in the second phase. The repolling at 12 polling stations from 5 assembly constituencies will also be conducted along with the second phase tomorrow. The constituencies include Kundrakpam in Imphal East District, Saitu in Kangpok B, along with Thanlon, Henglep and Singhat in Churachandpur District. In all, 1,247 polling stations have been set up in the concerned constituencies for their convenience. We have a report.
Among the 92 candidates who are in fray in the final phase election in Manipur, BJP fielded 22 candidates and Congress fielded 18 candidates. NPP and NPF parties have also been trying their fate in 10 seats each. All the polling officials have reached their designated polling station by this evening and they have started setting up the polling station. Sufficient number of paramilitary personnel have been deployed in all polling stations. As per the direction of the High Court of Manipur, all young voters who appear to be around the age of 18 years in Hairok Assembly constituency will be verified their date of birth before casting their votes. Meanwhile, the election officials have also taken all necessary arrangements to conduct re-poll in 12 polling stations of 5 Assembly constituency tomorrow. JJ Thoksom, AIR News, Imphal.
During the first phase of assembly polls in Manipur, a record 88.63% voter turnout was registered in 38 assembly constituencies, which went to polls earlier this week. Meanwhile, in Uttar Pradesh, campaigning is in full swing on its penultimate day for the 7th and final phase of assembly polls. Star campaigners and prominent leaders of various political parties were engaged in public rallies. The party leaders were trying to reach out and woo the voters in different parts of these states. Prime Minister and BJP leader Narendra Modi held a roadshow in his parliamentary constituency of Varanasi. Mr. Modi is camping in the holy city for 2 days and will be taking part in different poll programs. Earlier, speaking at an election rally in Mirzapur, Mr. Modi said during COVID period alone, more than 400 crore rupees have been sent to farmers of Mirzapur.
इसी कोरोना काल में हमने देश के छोटे किसानों के बैंक खातों में सीधे 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपए भेजे। मिर्जापुर के किसानों को 400 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा और भदोही के किसानों को करीब 250 करोड़ रुपए सीधे बैंक खाते में भेजे हैं। 100 साल के इस सबसे बड़े संकट में भाजपा सरकार ने गरीब के जीवन को सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता दी है.
Tomorrow is the last day for campaigning. We have more from our correspondent.
It was an eventful day for Varanasi, where leaders of all political parties campaigned today. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held roadshow from Maldaiya to Kashi Vishwanath Temple. Earlier in the morning, Prime Minister addressed a political rally in Mirzapur district of the state. He said that during COVID, Indian citizens were stuck across the world and government launched Vande Bharat mission to bring them back. Now under Operation Ganga, government is evacuating students stuck in Ukraine and have brought thousands of citizens back to India. Prime Minister is also scheduled to address political rally in Varanasi tomorrow. Former Congress President Rahul Gandhi and Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra offered prayers at Kashi Vishwanath Temple today morning and later addressed a rally in Pindra area of the district. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, AIR News, Varanasi.
54 assembly constituencies spread over 9 districts will go to polls in the 7th phase on Monday. There are total 613 candidates in the fray in this phase. Over 56% turnout was recorded in the 6th phase of polling in Uttar Pradesh yesterday. 57 assembly constituencies spread across 10 districts went to polls in this phase. In addition, the assembly by-election for the Majuli seat in Assam will also be held simultaneously on Monday. The by-poll was necessitated following the resignation of Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal from this seat after being elected to the Rajya Sabha.
Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav has announced that the anti-collision test conducted by the Indian Railways to check the indigenous developed system to avoid rail accidents is successful. He held an on-site inspection near Sikandrabad today. The indigenously developed automatic train protection system, Kavach, was designed to help the railways to achieve the goal of zero accidents. Kavach automatically stopped the train before 380 meters of other locomotive at the front. He tweeted about the successful test of Kavach. The test involved 2 trains, one with the railways minister on board and the other with the chairman of the railways board, hurtled towards each other at full speed. Both the trains stopped 380 meters apart. The Kavach will be the world's cheapest automatic train collision protection system. The railway authorities informed that once implemented, it will cost 50 lakh rupees per kilometre to operate compared to about 2 crore rupees worldwide. Over 178 crore 29 lakh vaccine doses have been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. Over 13,000 recoveries in the last 24 hours have been witnessed. The recovery rate is currently at 98.64%. Over 6,000 new cases were recorded in the last 24 hours.
Union Minister Ayush and Ports, Shipping and Waterways Sarbanand Sonowal has announced a major investment of more than 100 crore rupees to develop the Ayush healthcare sector in Nagaland. Speaking after inaugurating the integrated Ayush hospital at Raja Chedema under Kohima district today, Mr. Sonowal said North East has an immense potential to become the hub in the Ayush sector. The Information and Broadcasting Ministry has assured the film fraternity that suitable amendments would be proposed to the Cinematograph Act 1952 to combat film piracy. Addressing a consultation meeting of film associations through video conferencing, Information and Broadcasting Secretary Apurva Chandra said the issues with respect to proposed cinematograph amendment bill and anti-piracy issues will be addressed after consultation with the stakeholders of the industry. Mr. Chandra also spoke about the merger of 4 film media units, namely Films Division, Directorate of Film Festivals, National Film Archives of India and Children's Film Society with the National Film Development Corporation NFDC Limited. He expressed that the basic objective is NFDC should become the entity through which the revenues from the film sector can be utilized for development of the film sector. Speaking about the Finance Minister's announcement of setting up an animation, visual effects, gaming and comic promotion task force, Mr. Chandra said the task force is likely to be set up by this month end as the ministry is working on its terms of reference. He said funding will not be an issue as the government wants to utilize the full potential of this sunrise sector.
Defence Expo 2022, scheduled to be held in Gandhinagar, has been postponed due to logistics problems being experienced by the participants. It was scheduled to be held from the 10th to the 14th of this month. The new dates will be communicated in due course. In Pakistan, at least 56 people were killed and 194 others wounded following a massive bomb blast inside a Shiite Muslim mosque in its northern city of Peshawar. Local police official Wahid Ha said the explosion occurred when worshippers had gathered in the Kucha Risaldar Mosque in Peshawar's Old City for Friday prayers. Peshawar Police Chief Mohammad Ijaz Ha said the violence started when 2 armed attackers opened fire on police outside the mosque. 1 attacker and 1 policeman were killed in the gunfight and another police official was wounded. The second attacker then ran inside the mosque and detonated a bomb. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the blast. Prime Minister Imran Khan has condemned the bombing.
Patna has entered in the top 10 ranking of top cities in the country where All India Radio live streams on News on AIR app are most popular. Pune, Bengaluru, Delhi NCR, Hyderabad and Mumbai continue to be the top 5 in the ranking. Vividh Bharati National is at number 1 in the ranking in the category of News on AIR top 10 streams in India, followed by Asmita Mumbai and AIR Pune. In a major change in rankings of top AIR streams in the country, AIR Oriya has appeared in the top 10 for the first time, while AIR Pune FM and Rainbow Kannada Kamanavilu will have made a comeback. More than 240 radio services of All India Radio are live streamed on News on AIR app. 2 legendary cricketers of Australia, Shane Warne and Rod Marsh, passed away today. Shane Warne died at the age of 52 after a suspected heart attack at Koh Samui in Thailand. He is widely considered one of the best players in history, having taken 708 wickets in 145 test matches. He was a key member in one of the greatest teams in history, with Australia dominating the sport for much of his 15-year international career. A statement from Warne's management said Shane was found unresponsive in his villa and, despite the best efforts of medical staff, he could not be revived. Legendary Australian wicketkeeper Rod Marsh also died today after suffering a heart attack. He was 74. Here is a tribute to the 2 all-time great cricketers of Australia.
Vaughan is widely regarded as one of the greatest bowlers to have played the game, having retired as Test cricket's second most prolific wicket-taker. Vaughan played his first Test match in 1992 and took over 1,000 international wickets in Tests and One-Day Internationals, second to this milestone after Sri Lanka's Muthiah Muralidharan. Vaughan's 708 Test wickets was the record for the most wickets taken by any bowler in Test cricket until it was broken by Muralidharan on 3rd December 2007. A useful lower order batsman, Vaughan is also the only player to have scored more than 3,000 Test runs without a career century. The ball of the century is the name given to a cricket delivery bowled by him to English batsman Mike Getting on 4th June 1993, the second day of the first Test of the 1993 Ashes series at Old Trafford in Manchester.
He's done it. He started off with the most beautiful delivery.
The news is the second devastating blow for Australian cricket within 24 hours, with fellow great Rod Marsh also dying on Friday, having suffered a major heart attack last week. Affectionately known as Warnie and adored by millions across the globe, Vaughan is considered by many as the greatest bowler to ever play the game. Sports Desk, AIR News.
Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur has expressed grief over the death of the King of Spin, Shane Warne. Paying tribute to Shane Warne, Mr. Thakur said he was a legend who spun magic on the field and won admirers in the world of cricket. Mr. Thakur said he will live on through moments etched in our memories. Shane Warne was one of the greats of our times.
In cricket, India were 357 for 6 in their first innings against Sri Lanka at Stumps on the opening day of first Test match in Mohali. Earlier, the hosts won the toss and elected to bat first. Ravindra Jadeja on 45 runs and Ravichandran Ashwin on 10 runs were at the crease at the end of the day's play. Rishabh Pant was the top scorer for the day with 96 runs, followed by Hanuma Vihari with 58 and Virat Kohli with 45 runs. Earlier, the hosts won the toss and elected to bat first. The two-match series between India and Sri Lanka marks the beginning of Rohit Sharma's journey as the skipper of the Test side. And incidentally, this is the 100th Test of star cricketer Virat Kohli. Sri Lanka are yet to defeat India in Tests in India, a run which Rohit will look to continue in the upcoming series. India have played against Sri Lanka 20 times at home, with the men in blue emerging victorious on 11 occasions, while the remaining 9 ended in draws. The West Indies defeated New Zealand by 3 runs in their opening game of ICC Women's World Cup at Mount Maunganui today. Chasing a victory target of 260 runs set by the West Indies, the hosts were bowled out for 256 with 1 ball to spare. Earlier put into bat, the West Indies posted 259 runs. India will begin their journey in the tournament on Sunday when they take on arch-rivals Pakistan. England is the defending champion of the tournament. This tournament is being played in a round-robin format.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. National capital Delhi is likely to have strong surface winds during daytime. Temperature will vary between 14 and 28 degrees Celsius. Mumbai and Kolkata will have a mainly clear sky. Chennai is likely to have a generally cloudy sky with moderate rain. Srinagar will have a partly cloudy sky. Jammu will have mainly clear sky becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Leh and Gilgit are likely to have partly cloudy sky. Guwahati, Aizawl and Imphal will have mainly clear sky. Shillong and Kohima will have partly cloudy sky. Itanagar will have partly cloudy sky with haze. Gangtok will have mainly clear sky becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. And now before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviews situation in Ukraine. Nearly 10,800 stranded Indians brought back by special flights so far under Operation Ganga from Ukraine's neighbouring countries. 16 flights scheduled for next 24 hours, including 4 C-17 aircraft of Indian Air Force. UNHRC votes for formation of Commission of Inquiry to monitor alleged human rights violations by Russian army in Ukraine. All preparations in place for second and final phase of assembly elections in Manipur tomorrow, polling to be held from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Campaigning to end tomorrow for seventh and final phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Indigenous anti-collision system Kavach to avoid rail accidents successfully tested by Indian Railways. At least 56 people killed in bomb blast at Shiite Mosque of Peshawar city in Pakistan. Legendary Australian cricketers Shane Warne and Marsh pass away. And India were 357 for 6 in their first innings against Sri Lanka at Stumps on day 1 of first cricket test at Mohali. And with that we end the evening news. Good night.